Hey, so we're at the end of our Bootstrap section, and we're going to put our bootstrapping skills to the test by handcrafting an artisanal cold brew startup style website. You hear what I'm saying? Basically, I'm going to show you how to create a actually quite nice. Whoops, sorry about that. My iMac backup disk is full. Whoops. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to code an actually quite beautiful startup style website using some modern conventions. But the reason why I want to show you this is it's also kind of a little bit of a joke or a farce because it's kind of a common knowledge, at least in the web developer world, that startup websites all look the same. And hipsters are fun to make fun of because they're all the same. And there's a lot of jokes going around about startup websites and also hipsters and hipster culture. So I wanted to bring the two together and create a hipster style startup website. And we're going to do that here in Bootstrap. So let me just run you through the site. It's very simple, but actually quite nice. I'm very, very happy with how it looks. But then we'll go ahead and start coding it. So we have hipsterify.io, and then we have this big cover image with a nice, kind of cool photography in the background. You probably haven't heard of us. We're that cool vegan uncle who doesn't have kids and somehow makes a living repairing antique Polaroid cameras while drinking a $38 bottle of artisanal cold brew. Let's get started, I guess. Takes you down to the yhipsterify.io, but if you scroll down, it scrolls down from the full screen here. Boom, scrolls down to a quote, I guess a testimonial. I never realized how uncool I was before. Hipsterify.io lovingly crafted me into shape, complete with a skin fade, fresh denim, and a mustache. Not only were they late, but they were over budget. Highly recommended. A happy client. Yhipsterify.io, artisanal ready-made in small batches. And then meet our team. We have some people here, Jane, John, Jenny, and Jim, all the Doe family, apparently, with a nice background there. And then get our handcrafted newsletter. Seriously, we'll send you real paper in the mail. We don't do email. Put your real mailing address in here and handcraft it. Boom. Crafted with love in Calgary by Brad. And it's also responsive. If I were to resize this here, however, there are a couple little things that I know that you'll see here. There's too much padding, and we'll fix that. We'll go ahead and we'll do some media queries, and we'll fix that up. And, obviously that's too small of an input. So we'll do that once we jump in here. So that is our hipster startup website. Why don't we jump in and get started? All right, here we are, startup.html. Go ahead and create this basic structure here or copy it from your course files folder. We're going to give it the title of hipsterify.io. It's got all just the basic meta tags, the Bootstrap links for the CSS, the shim and respond.js, and then we got our jQuery and a Bootstrap theme file included in there. And so in here in our body, we're just going to get started, start off right away with a nav bar. And that nav, it's going to have the class of navbar and then navbar-fixed-top. In there, we're going to have div class container. And then in the container, we're going to have our div class navbar-header. And then in our navbar header, we're going to have our button. And that's going to be type of button. And it's also going to have the class of navbar-toggle and collapsed. And then data-toggle equals collapse. And then one more, data-target equals pound navbar-collapse. Close that string. And then inside this button, we're going to have those three lines. So the span, copy and paste that 3 times. And this is going to say class icon-bar. Why don't we just copy that and paste that 3 times instead. And then you can actually add one more span tag up here, and we're going to say class SR only, and then just let the screen readers know, toggle navigation, that's what this is all about. Great, and then we're going to have our navbar brand outside of the button there, so class navbar-brand, and then href, let's just link it to the index.html just to, make it link somewhere. Hipsterify.io. Here we go. We've got our navbar header. Great. Now outside of our navbar header, we need to add our div that's going to have the class of collapse, navbar-collapse, and then ID navbar-collapse. And that's going to give us, it's going to hook it into this little hamburger icon for the mobile devices. Unordered list. This unordered list is going to have the class of nav, navbar-nav, and navbar-right. Excellent. List item tag and A with the href. And this one's going to say home. I'm going to copy this, paste it 3 more times. I'm just going to change it up. The first one's going to say class of active. If you want, about, our team, and contact. And here's our nav bar. Looking pretty bare so far, but it's there. Responsive. One thing I note here is you won't see the sandwich icon. There we go. Because we forgot one little thing here. We need to decide, is this going to be navbar default, navbar inverse? Let's call it navbar default. And that will give us those basic styles, which will allow us to see that little sandwich icon that we can click. Perfect. Let's move on to the next part of the site here. So under the nav, we're going to build that little cover image, I guess that you could call it, that is going to display full screen with that background. So this is going to have the div with the class of cover. Inside of there, we're going to have a div with the class of cover-text. Very minimal markup here. Level 1 heading. You probably haven't heard of us. And we're going to make this apostrophe an actual right single quote. So rs quo, HTML entity, instead of just a little apostrophe. We're actually going to make a real one. Paragraph with the class of lead. And that's going to say, we're that cool vegan uncle who doesn't have kids cold and brew. Wow. Seriously, it took me a while to come up with that sentence. href. This is going to link to why us on the page. It's going to target that. The role will be a button, and the class will be btn, btn danger, btn lg for button large. Let's get started, I guess. And that's the button. There we go. We're going to have our cover, at least the markup. Obviously, it's not going to show up anything there yet, but we have our markup there. And don't worry, we'll style this up. So we're getting there. Okay, next up, let's do the testimonial. So we're going to do section. I think hipsters would be more appreciative of HTML5. Class, testimonial. And then this is going to be div with the class of container. The reason why I'm putting the container inside the testimonial is because I want the testimonial to be full width and the container to have to be inside of that so it can, stick to the grid. Whereas if I were to use the container outside, then everything inside is going to be stuck within this centered block. And then if I were to put a background on it, you'd see white edges on either side. So trust me, this is going to be much better. Container block quote. This is going to say LD quo for left double quote. I never realized how uncool I was before. Blah, 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 blah. And end with RD quo for right double quote. And then site. This is going to be the site tag and then M dash happy client. There we go. Save that block quote. And our testimonial section. Next section. It's a section with the ID of y-us. In here, we're going to go ahead and add some stuff in here. So let's go level 2 heading and then hipsterify.io question mark div with the class of container. Okay, now in the container, we're going to add a div with the class of row. We're going to access the Bootstrap rows here. Or grids, div class call small 4. In here, level 3 heading, artisanal. And then we're going to do the paragraph tag. And that paragraph tag, we're just going to have some, I'm going to use hipster ipsum. If you want to use Hipster Ipsum, just Google Hipster Ipsum, and it basically gives you a little website where you could generate lorem ipsum, but with Hipster Ipsum language, like ready-made whatever for aesthetic tote bag, tilde, something like that. Mustache try hard skateboard blog. That's pretty cool. All right, now I'm going to copy this call small 4, paste it 2 more times, change the level 3 heading to different hipster style words like ready-made and small batches. That's pretty hipster, if you ask me. All right, so save that. Now we should have some more content here. We got our block quote, whyhipsterify.io. So we're getting there. Obviously, this looks like total crapola, but that's okay because we're going to use CSS to make this sexy. Now remember, folks, that's not how you say CSS. Brad doesn't know what he's talking about. Section ID team. We're going to add another section here. Team, and then in here, div with the class of container. And open that up. We're going to do level 2 heading. And this is going to say meet our team. And there we go. And then, whoops, not a paragraph tag, div with the class of, come on now, brackets, work with me here. Class of row. Okay. I think we're getting there. Div with the class of call small 3. Okay. In here, we're going to go ahead and add an image. The source of image slash, got some images queued up there in the folder. You should have already have it downloaded in your final course files folder. Just got a few things there. We're going to go ahead and add jane.jpg. I'm going to say alt tag. I'm going to say woman's face. And because Bootstrap lets me use a class called img-circle, it styles up that image to be in a circle without me having to do a lick of CSS. It's awesome. Although I love CSS. I just don't like doing too much CSS. Jane Doe in a level 4 heading. Paragraph tag, we're just going to have a lorem ipsum sentence. Good enough. Copy and paste that call small 3. 2 more times. 3 more times, actually. 3, 6, 9, 12. So this is going to change from Jane to John. And that's obviously a man's face. Change this to John. The next one will be Jenny. Woman's face. Jenny. And the last one will be Jim. Whoops. Case sensitive. There we go. That is a man's face. And this will be Jim. Save that. Let's see what we got so far. Meet our team. Jane, John, Jenny, and Jim. Perfect. Cool. Now we're going to move down to the last couple sections here. We got a section with the ID of sign up. Now in there, again, div with the class of container. In the container, level 2 heading, get our handcrafted newsletter. There we go. Paragraph with the class of lead. This is going to say, seriously, we'll send you real paper in the mail. We don't do email. Cool. Now we're going to add a row, div with the class of row, and then div with the class of call small 8, and then call small offset 2. Now what is this going to do? Basically it's an 8 column section, but it's going to kind of center it, almost like a margin 0 auto sort of thing. It's just going to offset that column by 2. So it's, instead of being 8 columns right from the left, it's going to be 8 columns from 2 columns in from the left. And so you'll see what I mean. It'll be centered in the center of the screen. Form. Inside that form, div, class of input dash group. Now in the input group, we're going to add an input, the type of text, class form, control, and input LG for input large. And we're going to add a placeholder that says, put your real address in here. That's our input. Then we have a span, because remember we're in an input group here. And the span will have the class of input dash group dash button. Now this is a Bootstrap feature here, little like a layout feature. I'll show you here what's going to happen. So button class, btn, btn-warning, btn-large to match the input. Type button, and I'm going to say handcraft it. Save that. Refresh. So you could see here at the bottom, the input is centered in the middle of the browser. It's 8 columns, but it's 2 columns from the left. Therefore, it has 2 columns empty on the right, so it looks centered. Pretty cool. Last but not least, we're going to do our footer. Whoops, there we go. And this is just going to say crafted with, and then heart. Hearts, actually, is what an HTML entity is. Calgary by Ahref. http://bradhussey.ca. Make sure to check out the website and subscribe. What? That didn't happen. Brad. There we go. Handcrafted with love in Calgary by Brad. There we go. Refresh. There's the footer down there. So we have all the markup right here. It looks pretty gnarly right now, man. But that's okay. CSS, we're going to make that sexy. So we're going to leave it at that because we're already, just tickling the 20-minute mark. And I don't like when my lectures are longer than that. So leave it at the HTML. See you in the next little spot here. We're going to style it up. And it's going to look handcrafted, artisanal. Ugh, whatever.